Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. And hope you've been having a good week so far. And headed for the weekend. Go ahead and start making plans for where you're going to worship. And go ahead and start thinking that through. If you don't have a place to worship, you don't have a church home, a faith community, I'd love to invite you to be with us at Poplar Grove Baptist Church on 3476 Poplar Tent Road. And again, we're meeting in our Family Life building so you can spread out and get plenty of social distance. It seems to me like if we're staying apart from each other instead of being called social distance, it ought to be unsocial, that we're being unsocial. And so we have, we're actually have our chairs set up 7 feet apart. So we're giving you an extra foot. And we'd love to have you if you don't have a church home. If you do, I hope you'll start making plans to be there and support your church. They definitely need it at this time. And so I hope to go ahead and start making those plans now. All right, take your Bibles and look with me in the book of Psalms, the 38th Psalm. We're picking up there in the 15th verse today. And going through there and starting at that point. And again, David has been talking all along about how to handle when we last chapter we talked about suffering. This chapter we're being more specific, this psalm, and talking about when we suffer as a result of our own sin. I don't know what the percentage is, but probably most of the time it's pretty high. Sometimes we suffer just because that's part of living. Sometimes we live in a fallen world. Sometimes our suffering is because of someone else. But I think probably most of us would confess that the vast majority of our suffering we bring on ourselves. And so after 14 verses, really kind of, I'm going to just call it pouring out his heart, confessing, begging forgiveness. I think all those kind of terms. Then beginning in verse 15, and we're going to move quickly through here. We're going to finish up the chapter today, I think. David just kind of says, Lord, I'm going to put my confidence in you. Lord, I'm going to trust you to get me through the suffering. I'm going to trust you to get me beyond my enemies. I'm going to trust you for forgiveness. I'm just, to use the Perry Mason Matlock phrase, I'm throwing myself on the mercy of the court, and I am going to, I'm going to put all my hope, all my confidence in you. And so beginning in verse 15, he says, For in thee, O Lord, do I hope. There's the word. Thou will hear, O Lord, my God. And so David begins simply, again, this whole section is going to be basically David expressing his hope in the Lord. What he's hoping in here, by the way, to be specific, and it's where we always place our hope, by the way, is in the very character, the nature of God. Because of who he is, then we can put our confidence in him. And so David is saying, because I know who you are, I know how you are, I guess. I don't know that that's really proper English, but I know who you are, I know how you are, I know how you're going to, because again, there's no changing, there's no variableness in God. I know I can place my hope in you, and I know, Lord, that you're going to tend to my needs for forgiveness, my need for healing, my need for protection. Lord, I know that I can put my hope in you. For I said, hear me, lest otherwise they should rejoice over me. When my foot slippeth, they magnify themselves against me. And so David again has put his confidence in the Lord, and then he gets very specific here. Well, not only has he put his confidence in the Lord, broadly speaking, but he has put his confidence in the Lord, that the Lord will take care of and protect his testimony. David says again here that they're not able to hear me, or they're going to be able to rejoice over me when I fall, and will magnify themselves against me. And so David says, Lord, I trust you. I hope in you to keep me on the straight road, to keep me on the right road. Don't I've been in this mess because I sinned, because I fell out of righteousness. Lord, don't let me slip and do it again. And so, Lord, I'm gonna trust you to help me, basically not make the same mistake again. And so, which is I think for a lot of us a common occurrence against in our life, is that we make the same mistakes over and over. And so, Lord, I'm trusting you. I got in this mess because I failed to follow you, and now don't let me make that mistake again. Help me to walk according to your will and your principles. Verse 17, for I am ready to halt, and my sorrow is continually before me. David says, you have got to help me, Lord. I'm trusting you to help me, because pretty much I'm ready to collapse. I'm done. I'm ready to halt. He's saying, I have done everything. If you don't intervene, if you don't heal me, if you don't do something about he talked earlier about the sores. If you don't do something, I'll never get over it. I've got to have your intervention. I've got to have you to help me. And so David is teaching us here, I think, how to pray in this situation. Verse 18, for I will declare my iniquity. I will be sorry for my sin. Again, David is saying, Lord, I'm confessing my sin. I'm acknowledging it. I did it. I'm guilty. I'm sorry for my sin. But mine enemies, verse 19, are lively and they are strong, and they that hate me are wrongfully multiplied. And so David here reminds God of the suffering that is being brought on is a better, I guess the way I need to say that, the suffering that is being brought on by his enemies and those who oppose him, those who are literally basically enjoying David's suffering. And so David has confessed his sin, and he is sorry for his sin, and God has begun the process of restoring his sin. Now he says, Lord, I want you to take care of my enemies. The only and I have to have that because they're strong and I'm weak. I've been beat down. They have grown, and there's more of them, and they are wrongfully, or those that hate me wrongfully are multiplied. So the number is growing. They are strong. Lord, I need your protection as I come out of this dilemma, this situation that I'm in. They also that render evil for good are my adversaries, but because I follow the thing that is good. And so David says, I'm trying to do the right thing here, but my enemies are opposing me and going against me simply because, and what David is saying here, like many times in our life, he says, my enemies are opposed to me simply because I'm trying to follow you. And so they are coming against me because of my obedience and my commitment to you. And he finishes up here by saying, forsake me not, O Lord, O my God, be not far from me. Make haste to help me, O Lord of my salvation. And so he just finishes up by again just um, pouring out his heart to God. Praying that God would never leave him, that God would never forsake him, is the word that he uses. And I like what he says here. He says, "Forsake me not, O Lord, oh my God, be not far from me." He says, not only, don't forsake me, don't completely leave me, but not only that, he says, don't even get too far from me. You stay right here with me. And I think that's probably a wise prayer for all of us. Lord, what I think about when I think about that is I think about how we are as how young children are. When they're first learning to walk and they're first start, they want you to give them their hand. You walk around a lot of times and they're holding your finger, just walking along with you. But then as they get older, what do? The more they walk, the braver they get, and the more they start to, to try to pull away and to go off. It's funny when they're very small, they hold you start out, you hold their hand to help them walk. Then it switches, and many times they just kind of hang on to your finger just for kind of support and balance. But as they get a little older, what happens? You have to switch, and you have to start holding their hand because if you don't, they'll run off. But then as they get older, what happens? They start tugging you. Let's go over here. They start tugging, and before long, if you're not careful, they'll get out of your hand. You look around, and in a split second, they're gone. And so David is saying, Lord, I don't even want to get tugged away from you. I don't even, I want to be right here. I want you to be walking with me. Don't be far from me. You stay right here. And then in verse 22, he says, hurry up, hurry and help me. David, I think what he's saying is I'm getting sicker. I'm getting more people. Again, he's already told us that his enemies are multiplying. And so his situation is getting worse. And so he calls out for God's speedy delivery, speedy help. And what I would, as we wrap up this psalm, and especially in particular this last section, go back to that illustration of a child trying to get away from their parents. Sometimes I think as believers, that's a great picture of how we do things. It's just part of our nature to want to do things ourselves, to be confident, and to try to walk and on our own and do things. And sometimes God has to allow us to be hurt, to be sick, to suffer, to get us back to realizing. We need him. Again, nobody that's ever been a parent may not understand, but sometimes it's when our children start that mess of trying to pull out of our hand and pull away from us, in other ways than just walking. But when they start trying to, do things on their own and get overconfident, as parents, sometimes we say, okay, go ahead. Go ahead, go ahead and do it. Hard head, you'll learn. And, we sit back and we stay close enough to make sure that they don't get in too deep of trouble, that they don't do too much damage, but we kind of let them, we'll let them, as one fellow used to tell me, if you can't listen, you got to feel. We'll just, okay, go ahead. You go ahead and do it your way and see what happens, and let them learn the hard way, even if it hurts, because we know they're better off learning that lesson now than later. And I think sometimes God does us that way. He allows us to reap what we've sown, to use the New Testament phrase. And so David teaches us here in this psalm, I think, a couple of things. One of them, just don't do it. Stay out of that situation. Do what the Lord says. Be obedient. But when we realize that we have strayed from the will of God and got out and disobeyed Him, confess it, deal with it. But then, if we don't do it then, and God does begin to allow us to suffer for that sin in our life, certainly then we need to be cleansed and have God forgive us and help us to get back on the right path. And so this psalm, I think, is a good lesson for us, good reminder for us of the consequences of sin, dealing with sin, confessing our sin, and getting back into the will of God. And so, as we wrap up this morning, I hope that as we've talked about this psalm, maybe you've done a little self examination. Maybe you looked a little bit in the mirror and said, I need to deal with some things. God's trying to get my attention. And I promise you this, if you're a child of God, you can't go very far, very long into sin before God will step in and intervene and to bring you back to the straight and narrow. Again, talking about, use that real quickly, that last illustration of a parent with a child. Occasionally we'll say to that child, okay, go ahead, hardhead, go ahead and learn yourself, but we watch and we won't let them go too far before we step in anyway and begin to bring them back. Our desire should be to stay so close to God, to stay close to His will, to be obedient to Him, that He doesn't have to use discipline and punishment to bring us back to the straight and narrow. All right, have a great day. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning.